we're holding. May you have the mind, but it's HODU HASHEM Kitoiv, Toshin Chobeis. Shabbos Parshas Vayera Rosh-Chodesh Shabbat, and we're holding in the middle of Eis Gimel. So the summary till now is that Kitoiv goes on Torah. Because Oir Bayar Hashem es Oir Kitoiv, Ein Toiv Ela Oir, and Torah is called Torah Oir, Torah is also Toiv. In addition, Rebbe brings it, this is from the Alter Rebbe. In addition, Rebbe brings Kilakach Toiv Nasati Lachem Torasi Al Tazoivo. Here again, we see the connection between Toiv. So the pasuk is saying, HODU HASHEM Kitoiv, he is Lashem, with the thanks is to the Eibishter exclusively, referring to Taryag Mitzvah HaTorah. Torah begematria Tov Reish Yud Aleph, and then Aleich Havaya, Aleich Hashem Lakecha Layilecha is Taryag. Ipiag Vura Shemaino. So Torah Tzivul on Moishe, that's Tov Reish Yud Aleph 611. Lano Moishe, and the Eibishter gave these two, but it's all conveyed Milamayla. So then Beisof Alazeh, Torah, that's Torah Shebiksav, Taryag Mitzvah Derais. Then there's what the Chachamim when Moisef, the Zayin Mitzvah Derabanan, Knesset Yisrael, and that's a Yoimar No Yisrael. Yoimar is Amshocha, that Eden Amamshich, the Insof Lamata. With that, the Chachamim when Moisef and added the Shev Mitzvah Derabanan. And here he goes into the Protim. Yoimar No Yisrael, Yoimar No Beis Aaron, Yoimar No Yirei Hashem. That's because that's the three sugim of Kainim, Levim, and Yisraelim. Yoimar No Yisrael is Yisraelim. Aaron is obviously Kainim. And Yirei Hashem, that's Kavah Gvura, that's the Avodah of Shira, as explains in Tanya. So that is the Levim, the union of Yira. So B'chololos we have Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Tiferes being Yisrael, Chesed being the Kohanim and Levim, Gvura, which corresponds to Torah Avodah and Gemilas Chasadim. Torah Tiferes and Avodah is Gvura, Gemilas Chasadim is Chesed. So what's the whole inyan? So that why would the Chachamim Moisef the Zayin Mitzvah Derabanan? In order there should be Kileilam Chazdai. Not merely his kindness is forever, but the deeper meaning Kileilam Chazdai, to be Mamshech Elikos in the world. So he explains that most of the Mitzvah Derabanan, exception of Shlomo Melech, but it began the process. He was Masak in the inyan of what? Netilas Yadayim and Erevin. So they were only, and most of the other mitzvahs were added, like Chanukah and Purim, at a time when there was a Yerida, and the Eira Torah, you didn't want a Keli for it, so therefore they have to be mamshech in the matzav. The words of the Maimon, Gila likus b'knesset Yisrael kol kach, l'idei mitzvahs deiraisa, mipnei anafilu shenaflu madrigosa. So Torah is not illuminating in it because they fell from their level, and Torah and mitzvahs themselves cannot illuminate the keli. So therefore they added Zayin Mitzvahs Derabanan. It comes out, l'chayra, it's not that there's no more Taryag mitzvahs, they're not doing the job, you only have Zayin Mitzvahs Derabanan. It doesn't give the beer here, but it seems that the Zayin Mitzvahs Derabanan are helping in the amshocha of the Taryag mitzvahs. It's not the point of the Maimon, but in the Taryag mitzvahs themselves, there's all the whole gufa. There's many exeris and siogim and hisofas midrabanan. So that's part of it. Also added bisman by Shane. He doesn't mention it, but the chudah, it accords with what we're saying. And the point of all of this is to be mamshech the inyan the matter further. Now we say this HaShem because according to one day, and that's the halacha, that halal HaShem is midrabanan. It's one of the mitzvahs, one of the different cheshbonos, but one of the the holiday is it's zayin mitzvahs, but the question is what are the 7? So there's halal is a machlekes, but the halacha is that halal is midrabanan. So what's HaShem? What halal is? Behiloi neiroi. He lights my candle. Giloi hamshacha. So HaShem is a weekday, and Chachamim were masakin to say halal and HaShem. That's the holding of the Rabbanan. It's to be mamshech alikus in a weekday, an ordinary weekday, involved in the chayil. What he adds now in his gimel is it's not the pshat. This, by the way, is before Basti Dagani, but it's the Maimon just before. But it's a hemshech because he's speaking here. It's not only, as he goes on to explain now, that not only the Chachamim, mamshech alikus lower, it's how does that happen? Because the Shodesh is taka higher. The Shodesh is higher. How's it possible? So we said yesterday that Adrabah Yidden are higher than Torah. Yidden are Moshe Atzmos. Torah is Chachmose, but it's Tzenish ala Kodesh Baruch Hu. And a Yid is Moshe Atzmos. Therefore, Yid can be Mamshech, the Neisen HaTorah in Torah, even more so than is manifested ordinarily in the Chachma and the Ratzon, which is overall Ishtalshalus. That's the true Chiddush. What's this idea of making Chiddushim in Torah? The point is to bring to bear the Neshamas Yisrael, which is the Kavanah Pnimius, to Torah. Hence Mashiach is the ultimate Torah Chadasha, because that's the Gilui of Yechid HaKlolis of Klal Yisrael. But I'm going to mention now something I shared with you several times. It's worth repeating. Something that Rabbi said at Fabrengen, the Fabrengen for Bnei Yeshivas that used to take place, Cholam Eitzukas. Before the Rebbe was Rebbe, they advertised throughout the yeshivas in New York. This was talking in the 40s, and they continued even after the Nesius. And these were unique Fabrengens for Bnei Yeshiva, and you can see from the early years the tremendous nigla and the whole language of the Rebbe is very unique. And so Zalman Posner relates that one of those Fabrengens that Rebbe explained, the Indian, the Pnimius, he was a bacher then, Zalman Posner, Oliver Sholem, the Shliach to Nashville, Tennessee, pioneer in bringing Chassidus to the English-speaking world, mentor to Manas Friedman, quoted by, as Manas himself said, one of his mentors, one of his people that he modeled himself after, inspired by. Abiel was the other. Akolponim. So he said as follows, as Zalman shares, Zalman Posner, the Rebbe said like this. Obviously, externally, Bechitzonius, so you have the Raisa, the Rabban, and the Minhagim, and in Halacha, in terms of importance, obviously the Raisa, then comes the Rabbanan, mitzvah the Rabbanan, and then a Minig. The Primis is the opposite. And what's das Boris? That we give a marshal of 3 levels of evidence. One level of evidence that the master tells him what to do, and he does it. And that's where it starts, and that's where it ends. And that's admirable, a loyal servant. Then there's an Eved that is so tuned in, not only does he obviously do what the master says, explicitly, but he picks up on the hints. The master hints, his devotion is so deep, he understands, and he does it. And then there's an Eved that the master doesn't even have to say, and he knows what the master wants, and that's a minig. Ad Khan is what the Rebbe said then. But now the question is, HaShem is playing games with us. This you say outright, and this you hint, and this you're not going to say. We've got to figure it out ourselves. If you want to tell us, without the Shem Zechnisht, don't be embarrassed. Tell us what you want. So the answer is that by divine design, that's the way we work. The deeper something is that you desire, the less you can articulate. The more essential, the less it can be contained in words. That's why there's poetry and there's music and nuance. Because you can't write an essay how much you love somebody. But in a song, the deeper the love, the more essential you love your children. Even in a song, you can't express it fully. You express an aspect of it. Or how much you want to live. If a person writes a song, how much he wants to live, or even a poem. It's not given to Isis. Of course, God can do anything. But this is the way he manifests, because that's the way he made us, and he wants to dirib tachtonim in a relationship with us. Hence, his atzmizdike desires, he kavayochel cannot articulate and doesn't. Kavayochel is not given to be put into Isis. That's the minhag. That's deepest. And mitzvahs derabanan come from a place where it can be expressed in a nuance. And a deirais is chachmosai. Chachmosai, it can be articulated, but it's in an articulated way. So hence, the Rabbanan and a minhag is rooted deeper than a mitzvah deraisa, or leisa said deraisa. Which is why we see, also what explains that, we see in fact when a yid becomes the neshama starting to stir, al tshuva, whatever it is, the first thing is like the yalmulke, a minhag. Yalmulke is mamash a minhag. It's quasi halacha, but it certainly started as a minhag. As akofas simchas Torah. It's a minhag Yisrael. That's the big attraction, that you see Yidden akofas that you don't see any other time of year. And Russian Jewry, what was the big day that they identified as Yidden? Was akofas. Yamulke akofas. What do people remember from their home? The customs that the Baba did. That they continue often, you find in Jewish homes. Film lav dafke. But the custom, the minhag, because it comes from a deeper place. Emes a minhag. Not a minhag oises gehenim, but a true minhag. So he actually starts to explain this, but not in these oises, that's what he's explaining here. So he started saying already in his Gimel, I'm sorry, if he hit number 6, yeah. His Gimel started the example of Neiris Chanukah. He's talking to Rabban, not minhag here. I don't think he speaks about minhagim altogether here. That Chanukah, so on the one hand, the whole mitzvah of the menorah is based on the menorah and the Beis HaMikdash, but we see it goes beyond that, because the menorah and the Beis HaMikdash is lit where the heichal. And even though the windows, the chalims were shkufim atumim, so the openings were narrow on the inside and wide on the outside, the thick Jerusalem brick. The point being that the light of the menorah should illuminate the world. But where is it? Where is it? It's in the heichal. Where is it? Where's in der Chanukah? It's al Pesach beis mibachutz. Because it comes from a higher place, it can illuminate even the outside. We're in the middle of that. We're up to the footnote, the number 23 in the text, in the gufa maimin, in the body of the maimin. Vadsha pula the ner Chanukah who he liya is kalya the rigla the tarmuda. So the Gemara says, saying that to when can you light? The point of Chanukah is bisumin, is so people should be seen. Once people are no longer on the street, there's no mitzvah. So when does that end? So when the people who deliver firewood for the people at the home will come home now, will need firewood for light and for cooking. When they're no longer on the street, that means everybody's home. So who are these people? They were Talmud. So who are these? Talmud is a place. So the Gemara says that we don't accept Geirim from Talmud. Why? Because the Gemara says that Talmudoi kreila klipa shemoidim b'malchus shemayim. The Gemara explains there that who are these people that settled? Good morning, Mendel. The people that settled there were with these laborers, the Shlomo HaMelech brought to Yisrael to build the Beis HaMikdash. They converted, they ended up rebelling. And so they were a thorn in our midst. So we don't accept the Gedim from there. Look up the Gemara again. Pretty sure I'm correct. Akoponim, so that's what they called Talmud Oisius. They settled in this place, but it hints to they're rebellious, because the word Talmud is the same letter as the word Meided, which means to rebel. Marum is gone benigla the Torah. That's what Chassidus says, that meaning that you light the Chanukah menorah, add the tichla, add the kalya, rigla the tarmudoi, until the feet of the Talmud are no longer, pounding the sidewalk. The deeper meaning is the light of the menorah is so powerful that it can consume and transform the lowest level of klippa that rebels and opposes God. That's the power of the Chanukah menorah over the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. That's chassidus. Now, Marum is I went ahead of myself here. I'm sure the Marum is gone by Nigla the Torah. This is into the Nigla the Mashim Gemara, as implied by the Gemara. Show Avdi Shloim who these people there Shemordu by that rebelled in him. When he's out of a bein had Tarmudim, and they settled amongst the people of the place called Tarmud. We don't accept Gerim from them because they rebelled. Or could be we don't marry them. We don't marry them. We don't accept them in marriage. Because they gave us is called into question because they rebelled subsequently. So this is hinted in the Gemara. The Gemara tells us that the servants of Shlomo rebelled and settled where? In Talmud. And it got it, and by divine providence, this place has hints to the word meredes, rebellion. Now, what's going further? So rebelling against Shlomo means rebelling against God. He sat on the throne of God. It's not a personal thing against the government, but rather their rebellion is a rebellion against the kingdom of heaven. And yet we light the menorah until it consumes, till it reaches and transforms even this. Meaning the vatal to not neutralize or and consume, the opposition, the rebellion to heaven. Moving, concluding, the Neiris Chanukah, so greater is the light because it comes from a higher place, and therefore the reach is greater. The Neiris Hamikdash over the light of the menorah upon which it is based. The Neiris in the Beis Hamikdash, the time of Shlomo, all of them are who even buys to Shmi about whom it says he's the one that will build. Hashem said to David, the house for me. So the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, somebody did the Talmud, did not affect the negation of the entity of this rebelliousness, this rebellion of Talmud. His menorah couldn't do that. The menorah of the Beis Hamikdash, which is a mitzvah given directly from Hashem, but rather, in order to transform and reach that level of rebellion, a loftier light is required, a deeper revelation, and that is Neiris Chanukah. So we see, we illustrate this in Neiris Chanukah. It's true of all the Zayin Mitzvahs D'Rabbanan. The whole point is like saying Hallel on HaShech. It's all in order to draw the light of holiness, even in the mundane. To do that, we have to draw on a higher source. That is higher than the earth, which is drawn through classic Torah mitzvahs. Yeah, we're good. Continuing. I spoke about Minhagim earlier, but now that I'm going even deeper about this. The next stage. So this that we said, that the mile of the seven mitzvah Rabbanan, which is drawing a likus into the mundane world, and therefore it's a higher gilui than Torah itself. So yesh nagam ba'aveda ben yon rishus. This is also expressed in that which a yid does. In yon rishus, which is permissible. It's not a mitzvah. Obviously not an aveda. It's in yon rishus for eating, drinking, so on. But when in the matters which are permissible, he fulfills what the pasuk says, "B'chol drachecha know God in all your ways." This is in Mishlei. There's no specific commandment. It's you do it your ways. Go ahead. You say to him is And moreover, this is not only is this similar, the same thing as the Zaymitzvahs that are bonon, because the Yid is bringing Kedusha in the mundane, but it's even higher. The 7 mitzvahs that are bonon, even at the outset, so this was an ordinary day or an ordinary moment. So the Hakonas Chachamim made it now something that is holy, so much so you make a bracha. I think there was something to also the whole discussion whether mitzvah d'Rabbanan say something is forbidden, for example. Does that mean that you can't eat it, but be'etzem it remains permissible? Or that's on the governor, in other words, or the Chacham have the koyach to, when they forbid something or permit something, it's in the chefetz that actually affect, they bring about a change in the object itself. Maskon, the Altreben, is that it's a change in the object itself. That's what he says over here. So when the Rabbanan make a mitzvah, I think he's hinting to that. Nase inyan shal mitzvah kedusha. It's not only you do something, it's that part of the world, or that object, whatever the mitzvah is, until the Shaddai, whatever it is, so that becomes something holy. So we're not really engaging the world. There's a whole world out there that we're not engaging. They took a part of the world, and they now brought it into the realm of Kedusha. But the tachlis is the world remains the world, and bring godliness there. That's b'chol drachecha da'eyo. Know God in all your ways, not a mitzvah. You're exercising, you're sleeping, eating, drinking, there's no bracha that you make before. But if a Yid does that because it's all part of his service of Hashem and appreciation, that's even a deeper achievement, drawing on even a higher that's the true dida b'tachtonim. But when a Yid knows Hashem, and the dik is your ways, everybody's got their own lifestyle, their own needs, their own business, their own challenges, but in her unique situation, so then he's not making brachas. It doesn't become a mitzvah. They remain things that are merely permissible. It's food and drink. In brackets, the Rambam reckons 10 things corresponding to the 10 spheres, the 10 midas, which a chacham is different than everybody else, the way he eats and drinks, conducts himself in business, etc., dresses, walks. All of these things are not mitzvahs, but here you see ayid, a chacham. That's the whole beauty. But through this, engaging the world in such a way with divine awareness, he's a chassid, right? It's a chassid. Whatever he does is a chassid. It's gate a chassid, shlaft a chassid walks, a chassid sleeps. Know God, your Lord, and serve Him with the whole heart. So this das alekei avicha is bechol drachecha do'ehu. Know God, same word here. Know God in all your ways. And what's the diak of know? What's das? Beifin shall das dafke melosh niskashos. Das means, as we know, to bond, to become one. So really connect to the Eibishter in the deepest way. It's not when you got a mitzvah and you do it, but when it's your world and you've invited God there, and He's part of my drachecha. That's iskashos. That's iskashos. Yeah. So it's understood now. So when they reised the Rabbanan bechol drachecha da'ehu, which is kind of the minig thing. Mamshichim ein naili yosef, but it's even deeper than the minig. Minig is a minig. You do on special occasions. This is who he is. Mamshichim ein naili yosef. It's even a higher oid. Moishe nimshachad leikim mitzvahs than oid that's drawn down from mitzvahs. Kol gam zayin mitzvah rabban, including even zayin mitzvah rabban. Yeshleim bar. Just to those who this maamer, the Rebbe's the first ois was a summary of a maamer of the Alter Rebbe that had not been published in HaSHEM Beis. Years later, it was. The rest of the maamer the Rebbe is adding to elaborating on the maamer, which he often did such things. Some sense, all of his maamer about that, they're all based on the maamer of the Rebbe. That's Malchus. So he's explaining the previous maamer. But the Chidush Atzmi in the maamer, Chidush Atzmi. That's Malchus. It's only a word that just conveys what's going on inside, Seichel and Midas. But the power of the word is it draws an Etzem HaNefesh and magnifies the Midas and the Seichel on a whole new level. The Kuti Sichas, it's a collection of talks. So when he would say that often, sometimes he would speak about what he would define the Fabrengen, giving over Avot from the Sidereinu, from the Rabbi. That's how he would define the Fabrengen. Just conveying over, giving, that's my job. Giving over. Taka. On the one hand, he's giving over what was said, but he's revealing what was said, and the Atzmi is the depth, which makes what was said a whole new level. Continue. This is what the Gemara says. It's a Gemara in Brachos. What is a small parsha, a pasuk in Tanakh, that all of the body, the main body of Torah, dependent upon it? This pasuk, know God in all your ways. I don't know you can understand this any other way. The Hainushim, you can see what the Mefarshim say on it. In Nigla, like even though it's a small parsha, doesn't mean it's small in volume. It's a few words. But it's a dover cotton. We're talking a mitzvah. It's not bracha. It's a small matter. Not talking an obligation of the Raisa. He's to run to the mikveh before he does it. Not even the Rabbanon, over which you would make a bracha. It's a small matter. He's just engaging in life. Become more in the post the Gemara is saying, the whole body of the Torah, which is the Etzem, is dependent on this, the way he lives. The body of Torah, and the not individual limbs, specific limbs. But the whole essence of Torah is all about being a Yid. Being, not doing Jewish, being Jewish. Marriage is a state of being, not an activity that you do. I have a lot of things. I'm a business. I'm also a husband. It's just another big obligation I have. So what a marriage is, it's not a thing you do. It's who you are. And what's marriage? Same thing. Marriage is in the small details, not at the big grand moments. So this is the diak in the Gemara that call gufei Torah tluyim ba the etzem. Davke is in nas nishtabo begufa the malken. It's only through this. It's a lashon hazaya that a Jew comes to bow, to prostrate before the body of the king, the very essence of a likus. The essence of a likus is connected when a Jew is, I am Jewish, and it's reflected in all of the details of his life. Naturally, seamlessly. It's all Chassidish, it's all Jewish, it's all lichtig, it's all luminous. Another Indian. This mile of the level of connection. We draw down through living as a chassid, it's higher than the oil which is drawn down through that moment of the commandment of the mitzvah. Because then he's doing the mitzvah. But he was being the mitzvah. It's being Jewish. So this of course the kach shaved b'chol derech avoid of know HaShem in all your ways, but when it comes and touches the soul essence, it unlocks again that I am a Jew deeper, which is I do Jewish. I do mitzvahs. So now we can add an insight to the meaning of the words of the Gemara. What is a small parsha that the whole body of the Torah is dependent on? What's parsha ketana? It's shaykh to the everybody. This avodah. Since we're talking about I am a yid, that's a manashana. So when it comes to seichel and bidus and doing the mitzvah and having ava and yid understanding, there's a huge difference between one person and the other in the giluim of the neshama. But I am a yid. That everybody has equally. So the beautiful taiche that this is the Gemara is saying it's a parsha ketana, meaning it's a small parsha, meaning it's shaykh to the simplest Jew. Why? Because b'chol drachecha deyo is the deepest avodah, the deepest expression of who we are, of which everybody has equally. Everybody's a yid equally. Even the simplest, the smallest, that the soul essence are all the same. And that is the deepest avodah, is living as a yid, which everybody can do in their life. So it comes down down to the cotton shebektanim. This is the mind again before the bus of the gani. Mile madin ketz and matam matad in tachas.